Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be discussing a very interesting topic, but today for the first time on this channel on Kids Love F1, I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, and that is Aldas. So Aldas, welcome to the channel.
Well, thank you for having me. I am really actually excited for this because me and you have actually been talking for quite a while. I remember you're a very early subscriber from my channel, so this has almost been like a really kind of long time coming. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it today for sure.
Yeah, like Aldas said, me and Aldas have been talking for quite a while, mainly via Twitter. So yeah, I guess it's a great idea to finally make this into a video. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out Aldas's channel. That will be in the description. If somehow, you've found out about me, but haven't came across Aldas, in some, very small chance of that, but it could be possible. But yeah, he makes amazing videos, very high quality videos on a wide range of topics. There's some news videos, opinion pieces, and obviously the Rise and Fall series, which I know a lot of people love. But yeah, let's now get into the video. So obviously today we are going to be talking about Mercedes, and obviously since 2014 they have been very, very successful, to say the least. Won pretty much everything since 2014, and yeah, I think earlier in the turbo hybrid era, it was mostly because of the car, because they nailed those regulations and most of their rivals screwed up quite badly. But I think in the last few years, as everyone has caught up, I think most of their victories have been more down to the team just being the best overall team, making the least mistakes, and obviously their incredible performances by Lewis Hamilton, complemented by Valtteri Bottas. So the topic of this video is their drivers. Obviously, both Hamilton and Bottas are out of contract for 2020. I think it's really likely that Hamilton is going to be re-signing. I think that's like 99%. I cannot imagine him, moving to a different team, especially since Ferrari and Red Bull, their seats are already taken up. But the topic of interest here is that second seat, which is obviously currently occupied by Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, it could either be him being re-signed for another year or two, or it could be another driver that is coming in. It could be either one of those possibilities. So when I'm talking about, drivers, which driver is going to be in which seat, when I do these videos, I like to start off with the most logical option, which is obviously the current driver that fills the seat, which is obviously Bottas. So Altas, my question to you is, what's your opinion on Bottas being re-signed by Mercedes? You think it's a good idea?
Well, this is the thing, because I think it's a great idea. I mean, whether it's going to happen or not, we're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, Bottas is in a really weird situation because he's really improved. He had a pretty good first season at Mercedes in 2017, getting a few race wins there and there. I think it was Russia, Austria, and then Abu Dhabi. Had a poor 2018, there's no doubt about it. But then really came back in 2019. I mean, again, he wasn't on Lewis Hamilton's level, but I don't think that there's too many drivers in F1 history that are going to be on that kind of level. But he still finished, second in the championship. He still got a bunch of bunch of wins. I think he got in more pole positions than Lewis Hamilton, or maybe about the same. So that's very rare. You don't really out-qualify or get the same amount of poles as Lewis very often. So he's definitely improved, and he definitely is a really good member of the team. But he's in this really weird situation where there's a bunch of drivers just at the heels wanting to be in that Mercedes, and if he does get dropped, it's going to be almost a little bit understandable, but almost unfair as well, because he hasn't really done anything wrong. We haven't even seen him in 2020. I mean, we don't know. This could be the guy who could be the champion this year. Like, we just don't know. I mean, there's all that, it's a possibility, especially in that Mercedes, looking at how quick it was at the start of testing. So, yeah, the thing about Bottas and Hamilton is it's an incredible partnership. There's no doubt about it. It's the perfect blend of, you've got your number one driver, let's be honest, Lewis Hamilton, who's going to get those pole positions, win those races, and win those championships. He's going to be clutch when the pressure is on him. We've seen it time and time again. And Bottas, as we saw in 2019, he's not too shabby. He'll pick up those wins. He'll pick up those points. He'll have those kind of standout performances on those weekends where he almost seems a little bit unbeatable. Like, that's, he can have those moments. He's maybe not as consistent throughout the season and doesn't show up in all of the races, but it's a really good partnership at the moment. But yet again, you've got people like George Russell, people like Sebastian Vettel, who we're going to no doubt talk about, who's now free. You've got these people just jumping at the heels of Bottas. So again, Mercedes and Bottas are in this really weird situation where I understand if they dropped him, but at the same time, it would be harsh because he's done such a good job. And I mean, there is, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And certainly Mercedes have just this brilliant partnership where I think Toto in his head knows that Lewis is the one that wins championships. Bottas is the consistent guy who'll get that little win. So as far as Bottas, I do think I would definitely see a case for why they would wanted to keep him, because of course, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But there's a lot of there's a trend in Formula One, young drivers coming into teams, the changing of the guard. You know, we're seeing the likes of Vettel now falling to younger drivers like Leclerc and Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he's still at his peak, there's no doubt. I mean, I haven't seen any drop off from Lewis yet, but there's also this little change coming where people like George Russell, Esteban Ocon are soon going to overtake them. So as far as Bottas, I don't think he's going to be at the team. I totally want to understand why they would keep him, but I just think that it's almost kind of the time's running out a little bit for him. So yeah, I think it's like a 40% chance as to whether I think he stays at Mercedes for 2020. But again, I totally understand why they would drop him.
Interesting you say that 40%. You know, I was going to ask you, you know, what's the likelihood? I was going to say out of a scale of 10. You said 40%, 4 out of 10, simple maths. I actually said 7 out of 10. I think it's going to be a bit more likely, a higher chance, because Bottas out of these ones is the safest option. Mercedes have had so much success with Bottas. They've won their last 3 championships with him. It's just such a good harmonious pairing. You know, like you said, Hamilton wins the races. He clinches that championship when the pressure's on, when he needs to. And, you know, Bottas is there to pick up the pieces. Like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, so this is a partnership that really works well. I mean, you would be silly not to, I guess, break that harmony between them. But I guess the main downside of this is that long-term, it's definitely not a great pairing, because Hamilton, he's 35 right now. Like, he's driving at an insane level right now. He still is, but I cannot see him at Mercedes in 3 years, to be honest. I think he's going to retire now. Like, once he gets his 8 championships, which will happen eventually, let's face it. I think he's going to want to walk away from the sport. Like, where's the motivation after that? And obviously Ferrari and Red Bull have their future driver lineups sorted, but Mercedes don't. I mean, unless they believe that Bottas is a team leader, which I do not, you probably do not, and I don't think Toto Wolff thinks that either. So yeah, he obviously now is a good option, because, you know, it brings stability. There's already enough change with the 2022 regulations that are occurring. So why would you want to destabilize a very good partnership? And yeah, I feel bad for Bottas, like he said, because he's done everything that he needs to do. He is the perfect wingman, but time and time again, he's always under this pressure. I mean, I think it was last year and 2018. There's always this annual, you know, who's going to be at that Mercedes talk. It was obviously Ocon waiting in the wings. Bottas.
He's always just fed like 1 year contract. He's always just fed like 1 year, another year.
That must be a nightmare. He's always under pressure. So constantly has to prove himself. I think, you know, if he has a really good season, you know, it may improve his hinges, may not. It just depends on whether Mercedes have enough faith in their younger drivers, which is what we're going to go to. So yeah, like you said, you think it's a 4 out of 10 that Bottas is staying at Mercedes. Interesting to say that. I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10. I think it's probably a good chance he's going to stay. But the next driver, I think we can now move on. So the next driver I've picked as a potential option is Sebastian Vettel. So I think this is a bit more of a left field option, you know. There have been conflicting reports about this one, because earlier I know Daimler, the parent company of Mercedes, there were reports that they were pressuring Toto Wolff. I can understand that, you know, marketing reasons. 4-time world champion, German driver, German team. So that makes sense. But then recently, Bottas said that Mercedes aren't even considering Vettel. So at this point, I don't know what to believe. Let's just assume that, you know, they are in talks. But personally, I don't see this one working at all, because you cannot have 2 alpha drivers. I guess that's how you can put it. It just doesn't work. And obviously, as much as they respect each other, I think that, you know, when you have 2 drivers of that skill, that's just too much firepower. They're eventually going to be fighting for the same piece of track, and they're going to come together. And obviously, it did happen so many times with Hamilton and Rosberg. But the thing is, in that time, they had that luxury. Even if they took each other out, they're still like 60, 70 points clear of, you know, 3rd place in the championship. With the new regs, with the budget cap, they will not have that luxury. So that is the main reason why I cannot see this working at all. How about you?
We've seen time and time again in Formula One, 2 alphas just don't work unless you have this massive car advantage. I mean, even when you do have this massive car advantage, we saw it with Senna and Prost. You know, they had a big car advantage, but even then they kept coming together. There was controversy all the time. There was friction within the team. Hamilton, Alonso. You know, it's kind of crazy to call a rookie an alpha, but Lewis Hamilton is that kind of driver. There's no doubt about it. And it was exactly like that in 2007. 2 alphas just didn't work. Rosberg and Hamilton again. So we'd love to see it as fans, and there's no doubt that's the thing. When you get two amazing drivers, they make headlines. We love the Senna and Prost kind of partnership. We love the Lewis Hamilton and Alonso partnership because it makes headlines. It's very exciting. It can get a little bit kind of, it can get a little bit close, maybe a little bit too much. But yeah, it's for Toto. He's been through this. He's been through Rosberg, Hamilton. He doesn't need it. As far as the Daimler, there's definitely been conflicting reports because, yeah, you're definitely right. Both Daimler said that they would like a German driver, and then even Toto Wolff. I remember there was a Sky interview very recently, and he was like, "Yeah, well, we're considering Sebastian Vettel. We're considering all of our options." And then you have Bottas a few days ago coming out and saying, "No, the team has said absolutely categorically no. Vettel will not be at Mercedes in 2020 or 2021." I do apologize. So yeah, very conflicting reports. I'd love to see Vettel there. Obviously, I mean, of course, any Formula One fan, that Hamilton-Vettel showdown, the people that have dominated the 2010s, won every single championship except for 2016. I mean, that would just be the most incredible showdown. But again, I don't think Toto needs to. This is where kind of the Formula One head and the fan head have to kind of, there's a bit of a difference. I don't think Toto needs to take that risk. I don't even feel like Sebastian, I don't know if Mercedes it's definitely the right environment for him, but not when Lewis Hamilton is there, because Seb needs to be a number one driver. Ferrari is a very kind of interesting environment where you need to be a little bit of an aggressive driver. You need to be a little bit of a kind of controller like Michael Schumacher was. You need to be a little bit selfish like Alonso was, to kind of rally the team around you. And I don't think Seb really I don't think they accepted Seb for some reason. So there's a lot of things that didn't go right. I do think that Mercedes perhaps is a little bit of a better environment, but not with Lewis Hamilton there. So as much as I'd like to see it, I don't think it needs to happen. And I think there's better drivers for the future that could go into that Mercedes seat that aren't Sebastian Vettel. But again, I'd love to see it, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Toto Wolff, I mean, this guy is the ultimate shit stirrer. I mean, he's never ruled out any of the drivers so far. And I mean, his quotes, I don't have an example right now, but if you've been looking at the news, this driver certainly is an option. We're looking at this driver. The man just keeps you on your toes all the time. And obviously, there's even reports that, could he leave Mercedes because he's, investing in all of these teams, Williams, Racing Point, Aston Martin, my bad. Aston Martin, not Racing Point.
They're not Aston Martin yet, so it's okay.
Close enough. Yeah, that was actually your last video, I believe. But yeah, it's just a very interesting guy. I mean, could he be at Mercedes? Will he be leaving? It's certainly a very interesting future. And as for Vettel and Hamilton at Mercedes, honestly, even myself as a Vettel fan, I don't know if I'm the only one here. As much as I do want to see Vettel in Formula One, I don't want to see him at Mercedes. That's just my honest opinion, because we can get into this debate, Hamilton, Vettel, who's better, right? Honestly, even as a Vettel fan, I think we all know that Hamilton has that just very small margin. He's just a bit more, he can hold his peak a bit more consistently than Vettel. He makes less mistakes. And it would be even more of an uphill battle for Vettel trying to dethrone Hamilton from the team that he's been in for the last 6 years. He knows everyone so well. He's already so acclimatized to the team. So Vettel is not beating Hamilton. It's just not going to happen. So why should Vettel try and put his reputation, an already rocky reputation, unfortunately, on the line? Like, for example, if you were Sebastian Vettel and Mercedes said, "Come here, we can, you're going to be up here against Lewis," would you take that offer?
Oh my God. But that's the thing. Like, it depends what Seb is thinking in his head, because I totally agree with you. Seb is in a really weird place. He just got beaten by Charles Leclerc. He's been beaten by maybe not inexperienced drivers, but very young drivers, Ricciardo, Leclerc. Hamilton is, with respect to Ricciardo and Leclerc, beating Hamilton is on a whole other level, especially since Hamilton has been there since 2013. The entire team is molded around him. So for Vettel, I don't really see. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just Vettel himself. I mean, even if he did want to be in Formula One, why would you go to Mercedes when half of your brain kind of knows that Lewis is going to beat you? I mean, of course, they all have self-confidence, but Lewis is just the better driver. So, yeah, even Vettel, even if he did get the contract, why would you want to go to Mercedes just to almost make the end of your career even more rocky? Maybe he should just leave on a high.
Yeah, exactly. And even with coronavirus, I don't think they can afford the two salaries of the drivers. It's just too expensive. And, why would you pay so much more money for a driver that's going to do the same team, going to do the same job, get second in the championship? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I think as for Vettel, he'll only be at Mercedes if, there's that 1% chance that Hamilton leaves. That's honestly the only place I can see Vettel at Mercedes. So I think out of 10, what do you think is the chance of this?
I think 1 out of 10. I'm not going to go
One out
zero
of
because
10.
zero
Yeah,
is absolutely no
yeah,
time,
yeah.
but it's a 1 out of 10. I mean, basically the entire. Just really quickly on the whole Daimler thing. I mean, even though a German driver and a German team is great, you've already got Lewis Hamilton. I mean, is he not a superstar enough for you
Yeah.
for branding wise? So I'm going to go with a 1 out of 10 just because the only off chance that Hamilton does kind of shock retire at the end of 2020, then I think absolutely Vettel is the perfect person. Experienced, he's been there, he's done that. Maybe not the best driver under pressure, but yeah, just on the off chance that Lewis Hamilton does leave, I think Vettel could go. But other than that, no way. I think they've got too many good options that we're going to talk about late, just in a little bit. So yeah, 1 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, for me, I went with a 2 out of 10. Same thing, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, obviously the 1 out of 10 is from that Hamilton shock retirement. Could happen. You never know. You never know what he's thinking. Or Toto
yeah.
Wolff suddenly has a change of heart, or Daimler manages to put enough pressure, which it's unlikely. Unlikely. There's a chance, but unlikely. Probably not going to happen. But yeah, we've looked at Bottas and Vettel. Those are the experienced guys. Those are the veterans. But now we are going to look at young drivers. And now young drivers, they are the future of Formula One. As a team, you need to have some of them in your academy. You need to sign one of them, groom them to be your future team leader. So that's what we're going to look at. And the first one, I guess, most logical one to start out with is George Russell. So he is a Mercedes junior waiting in the wings. He is at Williams right now. We all know he has the eyes on the prize. That second Mercedes seat, we all know he wants to be where Valtteri Bottas is right now. And Aldas, I know that you have been very vocal in your praise for Russell. Yeah, you've you really rate him really highly. You say he's a future world champion. So yeah, Russell to Mercedes. What are your thoughts on that?
This is where the Bottas confliction that I was talking about kind of happens because I want to see Bottas at Mercedes. I feel like he deserves. He hasn't done anything wrong to be able to throw in away. He's improved actually. But George Russell, man, this guy, he's special. I've been saying it since the start of the year. Everyone was mugging him off about being beaten by Kubica by 1 point. And yes, he did make a mistake in his rookie year. He made a mistake in Germany. Went wide and Kubica got that 1 point. I mean, there's like an onboard. So, but George Russell, he dominated in GP3, dominated in Formula 2 up against Lando Norris and Alex Albon. Everyone seems to just forget that. And dominated again. It wasn't like beaten by 10 or 20 points. I think it was like 30 or 40. He really did do a number on them. And he's coming to Formula One. And if you actually analyze his performances in 2019 and some of the little details and consider how bad that Williams car was, his performance in Hungary was amazing. Some other little performances there and there. The fact that he beat Kubica when they both finished, I think he was like 16-4 or something against Kubica when they both had to actually finish or something like that. So this guy is special. This guy, and he just seems so mature. It's crazy. You see, he didn't even make any mistakes really in 2019. Didn't have many crashes or many crazy incidents like Alex or maybe Norris, just a little bit, but of course they're rookies. George is so super focused. He almost looks older than he actually is, and that is why I just think he needs the right car. And every single time he's been in that Mercedes, and he's driven the 2017, the 2018, and 2019 car now in different tests. You hear nothing but good stuff coming from the team, and that's because he always impresses. And if he does get into that car, I think we're going to see some really very interesting partnership with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. And the reason why I think the coronavirus is almost made it the perfect time for George Russell to be in that Mercedes is because if none of this had happened and next year we did get the brand new rules, it's a very big risk to put a young driver in with a brand new rule change. He doesn't know the team, he doesn't know the car, and all of a sudden you throw him into a massive team and there's a new rule change also to contend with. Now in 2020, the rules are staying the same, so it's a much easier time for him to get into that car. Everything is the same. It's the same, the same regulation of cars. Yes, it's going to be quicker. Yes, it's a different environment, but it's much easier to get him used to Mercedes in 2020, and then the new rule changes come in 2021. Sorry, getting used to Mercedes in 2021, and then the brand new rule changes come in 2022, and then he's already used to the team, so it shouldn't be as big of a problem. And then we'll see the Lewis Hamilton kind of almost dip a little bit and maybe retire, and that is where George Russell can just naturally take over. So I rate George Russell highly. I mean, I've said that already, and I do think he deserves to be in that Mercedes because honestly, seeing him at the back of the grid and seeing so many people underrate him just because he's in a Williams just hurts right here, man. It just hurts me. So yeah, I want to see him in that Merc. I think it's the perfect time. Get used to Merc in 2021, and then you'll be there for the brand new regulations, ready to properly challenge Hamilton. So yeah, I'm going to expect. I think George Russell is going to be a multiple-time world champion at the least in the future, especially if he gets into that Merc.
Yeah, I think this guy is very good. Based on what we've seen, especially in the lower categories. But I guess the only knock, the only, I guess, downside to this is out of these four drivers, he is by far the least proven in Formula One. GP2, GP3, that's all well and good, but that is a completely different animal from Formula One. Stoffel Van Dorn was just as good a prospect as George Russell coming into Formula One, but he was a flop. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. George Russell last year whitewashed Kubica, and Stoffel Van Dorn in his final year got whitewashed by Fernando Alonso. Now I know that Kubica and Alonso are two completely different drivers, but it's obviously harder at McLaren with Alonso. So yeah, he's definitely still got some points to prove. But yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, he's at Williams. I guess it's not necessarily his fault. He's the best driver coming in out of the three, but then the three rookies, but he gets the worst car. I mean, he can't. That's unfortunate, but I guess it's put him in a good position because Williams is sort of a Mercedes junior team. But he hasn't really gotten the chance to prove himself to compare. His only point of comparison is washed up Robert Kubica. Let's be honest here, and he did pretty much all he could. But then my concern is is this false? Is this GP2 stuff a fluke? There is a chance because we've seen so many promising GP2 prospects that have been crushed. And imagine which Mercedes, the most coveted seat in Formula One, at least one of them, that's obviously up for debate. But yeah, it would be a lot of pressure. And, hypothetically, if with this shortened season, if Williams were to stay at the back, which they probably will, imagine George Russell scores no points this season, right? And then he gets promoted. Imagine promoting a Mercedes driver who hasn't even scored a point in Formula One. So, do you think there's any chance of this ending up like Gasly to Red Bull?
Absolutely. I'm not saying that George Russell is never going to make a mistake or anything like that. If he gets beaten by Latifi this season through a fluke, through another 1 point finish or something, then it's a whole different conversation, because then I'm going to look at Russell and say, okay, he's a good driver, no doubt. He's still a good driver now, but maybe he doesn't have that 1% that makes you a great driver into a phenomenal driver, the likes of, Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, maybe Leclerc as well. So yeah, for sure, I'll look at it. If he gets beaten by Nicholas Latifi, if they're much closer together, then I'll look at it a little bit different. But if he does go on to score a few points in that Williams and, again, maybe whitewashes Latifi or something like that, or really outperforms him, then I do think he deserves to be up into that Mercedes, because I think he will kind of almost prove it. So again, yeah, I'm definitely not kind of completely just giving him the keys to the kingdom, no doubt about it. But I do want to see him, deliver in 2020. There's no excuse as to why he shouldn't.
Do you think he can be better than Leclerc or Verstappen?
Yeah, I've said it. I've said it time and time again. It's his maturity. It's his maturity that it's phenomenal. Like, the hardest thing for a driver, especially coming into Formula One, is to go into a team that's on a decline. That is the absolute hardest, because, here's the thing, like when you look at Leclerc, he came into Sauber when they were on the rise. Everything's good. You've got this young driver. The car is getting better every single time. With Williams, it was the opposite. They were getting worse from 2018 to 2019. So as a rookie, you go into a team that's getting even worse than the time before. There's even more pressure, and there's even more kind of worry around the team that everything is bad. And so that's why I think he's just so mature for his age compared to like Verstappen or Leclerc, when you compare it to how many seasons they've done. And in terms of speed, I've said it time and time again, and I'll say it on this video, I do think that at the moment, I do think that George Russell in the future could potentially have more titles than both Leclerc and Verstappen if he gets in the right car. I just want to see him in that Mercedes to see if I'm right or wrong, but I've said it time and time again. I do think that I rate him higher than Verstappen and Leclerc in the future. Not now, in the future.
Yeah, Val, that's very interesting that you say that. Yeah, he has a very high ceiling. I think he can be a future world champion. Let's see how the next 5-10 years plays out. Imagine.
Even the virtual GPs. Have you seen them?
I know.
Virtual GPs?
He's been dominating those virtual GPs, man.
Dominating. Yeah, really. I mean, I know that, and Leclerc's a little bit down, and I'm a big Leclerc fan, so yeah.
Well, I mean, by that logic, Raikkonen should be in Formula One.
Exactly.
Totally. All right. So I guess to round off with Russell, what do you think is the likelihood of this? I've put it as an 8 out of 10. I think it's going to happen. How about you?
I'm going to give it, I put 4 out of 10 for Bottas. So I'm going to say something like a 6 or a 7. I'm going to go 6.5 just to be really annoying. 6.5 out of 10. No, actually 7. That's it. 7 out of 10.
I'm going with an 8 because I think it's going to happen. Toto and Mercedes, they're a smart bunch. I think they understand that Hamilton won't be there forever. And, they got to get their future team leader in there. So yeah, that is George Russell, certainly a very interesting prospect for the future. So now we're going to go with the second young driver here, the final driver that is on my short list, and that is Esteban Ocon. So Ocon, I would say he's the dark horse on this list. I think we're probably going to be divided on, on Ocon. Obviously, you've done a few videos. I remember I was titled like "I don't get the hype around Esteban Ocon." So you probably have a different opinion on him than you do about Russell. So has that opinion changed at all?
Now, let it be known really quickly that I've said throughout all of time, I rate him. He's a good driver. I'm not saying he's a bad driver. I've never said that. He's a really good driver. To go up against Sergio Perez, who is the most underrated driver on the entire field, to go up against Sergio Perez and do as good as he did, there's no doubt that he is a great driver. But I never saw the world championship potential. He got beat by Sergio Perez 2 years in a row. And yes, a lot of people point to incidents and other stuff as well. But 2 years in a row, I mean, you have to, that doesn't scream to me like world phenomenal potential. We're not talking this, and that's why I kind of said I don't believe the hype that everyone's saying he's as good as Verstappen, he's as good as Leclerc, he's as good as, well, they're not really saying he's as good as Russell because they're kind of different, a little bit different years. But at the time they were saying he's on Verstappen's level. I just never saw that. The media kind of said that. But again, he's a great driver. There's no doubt. I was really disappointed to see him not in Formula One. He did not deserve to be dropped. I'm also a fan of Lance Stroll, but I don't think Lance Stroll deserved that seat over Ocon. No way. So yeah, great to see him back. I think Renault, Ricciardo, and Ocon, that is going to be a great partnership. But him going to Mercedes, and there's no doubt that he could potentially one day be in the top team. Esteban Ocon, if he comes in and beats Ricciardo, that's a whole different ball game because Ricciardo is a quality driver. But as far as that Mercedes seat, if Toto Wolff wanted Ocon in that Mercedes, he would have given it last year. And I feel like the reason why he didn't is because in 2019, Toto Wolff would have had to think to himself, if I put Esteban Ocon in that Mercedes, that means that he is the guy that we are sticking our flagpole. He is the guy who is going to go up against Max Verstappen, go up against Charles Leclerc in 3 or 4 years once Lewis Hamilton leaves or declines, and he is going to win us titles. And to me, Toto Wolff said, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that if we stick him in that Mercedes, he is going to be on the same level as Verstappen and Leclerc. He's a great driver, but he's not on that level, in my opinion. And I think that's why Toto, he thought, and if he made that decision and Ocon would have been in that car for 2020, there's no going back because, that's pretty much it. So I feel like that's why Toto thought at the time. And that's why I don't think he's going to put him in that car in 2021, because at the same time, it's the same thought. Is Ocon going to be able to beat Verstappen and Leclerc in 2 or 3 years' time in a Mercedes? That's the question you've got to ask yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he certainly proved that he is a very good driver, certainly a Bottas level, at least. I mean, to come in as a rookie and match one of the top midfield drivers who, arguably is a borderline top driver, in Sergio Perez, that is still a very impressive thing. And, there's obviously the whole argument. He got beaten in points, but at the same time, he destroyed Perez in qualifying. He was better than him in the races. And, it was that podium. I won't call it a fluke podium because, a podium is a podium. It was Perez's podium in Azerbaijan that put him on top. I think it was in 2018. Yeah, it was in 2018. So, Ocon, I guess we haven't seen, he's, I guess, not really a wow, amazing driver, like a wow driver that puts in, those once in a lifetime performances. We haven't exactly seen that. I guess the closest you could say is when he qualified fourth at Spa in that wet qualifying. Yeah, that was.
And what happened in the race? Where did Sergio Perez finish in that race? Ahead of Esteban Ocon.
Yeah,
this is the thing. There's just not too many wow moments. Yes, he had that great qualifying, and again, he's a great driver, but there's not that many wow moments. When you look at like Verstappen, you think of like the overtake around the outside of Blanchimont. You think of some amazing races like I think he had in 2015 in that tour also in the USA with Charles Leclerc. You think about the consistency, the ridiculous consistency. I think he finished 6th place 4 times in a row at the end of 2018 in a Sauber. So, but with Ocon, I'm not seeing too many wow moments. I think top driver, future world champion.
Do you ever see him as a future world champion? Because, these things can change. He's definitely not his peak yet. Do you think he eventually can get there at that level?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Everything can change within a season. I mean, everything. One season can make or break your career. And absolutely, he could be a future world champion. But at the moment, from what I've seen, I'm not quite putting him on that level yet. But if he has a great season at Renault, kind of leads that team for the next few years, beats whoever you put up against him, even if Fernando Alonso goes to that team, if Ocon beats Fernando Alonso, beats Daniel Ricciardo, again, like I said with Russell, whole different conversation. Then you can put him in the Mercedes, and then we can have the conversation that he's a proper future world champion on the level of Verstappen and Leclerc.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, the only thing that Ocon has going for him compared to Russell, if they're going to put him in, I think he's more of a low floor, high ceiling guy. So obviously, he's not going to be a flop because he's already proven himself against Perez under
Yeah.
a decent amount of pressure going up against a pretty stiff competition. So, you at least know that he's going to be at the Bottas level. He won't compromise your constructors, but, at the same time, there's doubts. Can he fight Verstappen and Leclerc like 5-6 years from now? We don't know if he's ready to be that lead driver position. And obviously also, I guess Russell is also better because I think Russell and Hamilton, I think that goes better, to be honest, than Ocon and Hamilton because, I just see their two personalities mixing very well, especially with Russell's maturity. Two British drivers, that would be very cool. I think Hamilton would be an excellent mentor to Russell. I can't really see that happening, as much, I guess. Ocon has had some flashpoints like with Verstappen. His personality, it's I guess up and down. He's a really fiery guy on the inside. I definitely would say that.
Which you do need, by the way. You do need as a world champion. You can't be, you need to be a leader. You need to be kind of have a bit of fight in you. But I mean, we all saw Verstappen versus Ocon, and I'm talking off track. And I know exactly who out of those two looks like the better leader to me, who's going to be able to fight his way to the front, both physically and literally.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. So I mean, Ocon, I think not next year. I don't think I can see him at Mercedes next year, but definitely sometime in the future. I'd honestly see him at a top team later in his career. That's honestly my opinion on him. I think I rate him pretty highly. But yeah, I think those are all of the drivers that we're going to cover in this video because, we could go on and on for hours talking about every driver. I mean, who doesn't want that Mercedes seat? I bet Toto's phone is constantly ringing, with all the drivers.
Fernando Alonso.
Oh my God! Yeah, certainly.
That's another video.
Imagine Alonso and Hamilton at Mercedes. That would just be fireworks.
The reunion.
I would pay for that. I'll pay for that. But,
yeah, for sure.
So I guess to round this one off, Aldas, I have one final big question to you. 2025 Mercedes. Who are their two drivers?
Ooh, 2025. So that's
4 years. 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go Russell. I'm actually going to go Russell and a driver that isn't even in Formula One. I genuinely think that I don't actually know who I'm talking about, but I don't think it's going to be a driver that's even in Formula One now. I feel like these teenagers, everything's happening so fast. I feel like, there could be a superstar in 2 years' time that we don't even know who he is. But as far as the drivers now, I think 2025, Russell for sure. He's the Mercedes leader. And I'm going to go with Norris, Russell and Norris.
Interesting. Yeah. So I guess he would be leave McLaren. Yeah, that would be very interesting, Aldas. But
yeah,
I personally, I think Russell and Ocon. That's
okay.
That would be a very interesting team dynamic. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, I guess it's sort of similar to Leclerc and Sainz in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, I think that for me, I think Russell is the guy that they should promote. Simply because, obviously they have their partnership with Bottas and Hamilton working now. It is such a good partnership, why change it? But it's mainly because Ferrari and Red Bull, they have their long-term driver lineup sorted for, for the foreseeable future, at least, even for the long term. I mean, these guys are all young. I think all of the drivers are under 25 years old. Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, and Albon. These are all young guys that top teams in Formula One are employing right now. 20, 30.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's completely unheard of, right? Putting your faith into a
Ferrari. I think Ferrari have the youngest driver lineup in their history. There's never been crazy.
Yeah. So youth is definitely the way to go forward. Hamilton, as good as he is, he will definitely not be here forever. And Russell, I think he's their guy. And I don't think I said this. No, I did. I said that he is 8 out of 10 to go to Mercedes. What about Ocon, actually? I'm going to put this at I'd say it's maybe a 3 out of 10. How about you?
I'm going to go 2 out of 10. I feel like he's more likely than Vettel. But again, if Toto wanted him in that Mercedes, it would have happened. It would have happened last year. So I think 2 out of 10, in my opinion.
All right. Well, yeah. I guess that is a very that's a good place to round off, I guess. Yeah, it was a very very entertaining chat, Aldas. Really enjoyed it. I hope you did also.
Absolutely.
So if you do enjoy my content, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And remember, check out Aldas's channel if you haven't already. Great content. And yeah, I bet, when's your next video, Aldas?
I'm literally working on it right now. I'm going to record it in the next few days, and yeah, so it's going to be hopefully out in the next 1 or 2 days.
All right, great to hear. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.